all parts of the world.
Now, you are the project manager for tobacco control, and he's talked about doing things to make sure this. What are the sort of things that you're doing?
Actually, tobacco control campaign in Nigeria, what we tagged Tobacco CTRL, is a public health and policy change campaign using social media to advocate for the passage of the comprehensive tobacco control law in Nigeria. So we are working with civil society organizations and NGOs like ERA and CISLAC in Abuja. So what we're doing with that is to get to the youth who are prone to take up smoking as a habit, and to inform them with infographics, with designs of the bad effects of how negative tobacco smoking can cause to them, and also get them to join the campaign. So we've been having giveaways, things they will like. We're getting them with things they will like and things they can relate with.
But the truth is that it's easy to say a lot of these things. And I know that a lot of people who I know started smoking when I was growing up in university started it because they thought it was a cool thing to do. Peer pressure is one of the biggest reasons why. I mean, if 10 people smoke, 8 people started smoking because their friend was smoking. How can you make not smoking cool?
So one of the reasons why some things are cool is because there's no information. So apparently, I mean, almost every young person at some point either considered or took a first, puff or something like that because we thought it was cool. But I think over time we get more information. I mean, we lose family members, we lose friends, and then we find out that really this is this is one habit that kills, and it's not even to demonize the person that is smoking. That's not the idea of this campaign. It's to basically say there's a danger here. Let's be very careful. There are one or two things that need to be done. But guess what? The people who are most affected are young people because, I mean, Africa is like the last market for everything, for phones, for cigarettes, and for everything else. And so basically, it looks like everybody's dumping something here. But I think it's important to use the same platform that young people relate with, social media, to let them understand, even if all they can get is the facts. So even if you want to do it, know that this and this and this are the things that could happen to you, and all that. And there's a lot that the tobacco industry, does in terms of misinformation. I thought, for example, that it was one of the biggest employers, in Nigeria at some point because I heard news about, these tobacco farmers and all that. But when I got the facts, I was like shocked, so why isn't this information out there? So that's one of the things that I think, so people can understand that, yes, you thought it was cool, but the cool thing, the best of the cool things is to be alive.
One thing I always have an issue with is the fact that a lot of governments around the world seem to have a conflict with keeping these companies because of the revenue they get from it, while also wanting to ban them because of the health implications. Why are some sort of drugs, for example, not allowed? And we hear statistically that tobacco, for example, kills much more than all of these drugs. Why not ban smoking completely?
Well, you see, personally, I've been engaged in this kind of debate. I would love to see that these companies are kicked out of our nation and out of our country. But you see, economists have told us that, look, if you just kick them out, you have one of the biggest smuggling ring in the world. Most of these companies are actually bigger than our countries when you check out their annual reports. Some of them are corporations for $50 per annum, more than that. And you see, what we are working on now is basically the law of demand and supply. We're trying to get people to reduce the consumption of these products. We're trying to put in place appropriate laws to make them accountable for the economic, social, and health cost of their production, so that gradually we'll begin to know whether they will begin to know whether they need to move to other alternative sources of generating profits. But we at this point believe that what every government in the world has subscribed to is the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. There is an international treaty that seeks to regulate the manufacturing, distribution, and sale of tobacco products. Nigeria is a party to this convention, and Nigeria is obligated under international law to domesticate this law. As a first step, we've been talking to the Nigerian government to domesticate this law as a national law, so that we can completely ban advertisement and sponsorship of tobacco products, which is one of the most effective ways they recruit the youths. We can put appropriate health warnings on tobacco products. We can use taxation. I've always asked myself, why will a pack of cigarettes sell for $10 in New York, about equivalent of $7 or £2 in UK, and that cigarette is selling for 150 naira, 200 naira in Nigeria. So what is going on is that these guys are privatizing so much profit in Nigeria, and they are socializing the cost. They are putting that cost on you and I, on my brothers, on my sister, and on my government. So we've got to wake up the Nigerian government to say, wait a minute. If other countries that are home to these corporations are putting in place laws and regulations, we need to do that here too.
Okay, I saw names, some sort of names who have endorsed a lot of these things you're doing. Stella Damaso, Saboderi, Fela Durotoye. How are you guys using them to pursue this?
Okay, because the campaign is online, and you know, and you have most of the celebrities have a large following on social media, and we actually reach out to them, and most just like you mentioned, Stella Damaso and Fela Durotoye have endorsed the campaign, and this is actually for them to get their followers to also be part of the campaign. You know, they can join on social media, on Facebook. They can write articles to us and just be part of the campaign. They can also send SMS to us, and we also help to get facts from every other person.
Just to take you back a little bit now, he was talking about laws and international laws that are not replicated here. I know that a lot of countries have banned smoking in public or in public places. For example, I know that the FCT tried to do that once. They actually did pass a law, but it has never been effected. Doesn't that worry you that some of these laws are actually in place in this country, but nothing has been done about them? So how are you sure that even if we go a step further, enforcement will still happen? Okay, so I mean, I think for the Nigerian environment, there are three levels. There's a level of no rule, no law, nothing happens. There's a level of there's a law, it doesn't get, you know, even implemented. And there's a level where there's so much pressure, where there's so much attention on that topic that the law is implemented. I think the worst place to be is where there's no law and no implementation. I think a better place to be is let the law be in place, so at least you can then begin to work towards implementation. And then the best place to be is the law and implementation. So I think, you know, this effort is in phases. You know, it's in phases. We can't get there tomorrow. I mean, we talk about changing governance in Nigeria, and people say things like, oh, there was a protest in 2012, it wasn't effective. And I say things like, it started from way back, 2010, there was a fact that SNGIE and other did rallies, 2011, citizens went out and monitored the elections, 2012, there was a protest, 2013, just last week, there were citizens who went out. So it's a process. It builds one, you know, on top of the other. And I think that's what will happen in this particular case. I mean, there are people who've been working for years on this particular issue, and I'm sure that the moment there is a law, then the next phase of action can happen, which is, you know, what happens with most legislations. That's what I was going to ask as well, because it's a big fight. Absolutely. And like you said, a lot of these companies are massive. Are you sure you know what they're taking on?
I think it's clear usually when it's a case of life and death. You know, that's my approach to this. It's a case of life and death. So there are people, you know, I think I've seen tobacco companies described as merchants of death. And I believe that, because I've seen the effect. You know, if you think that something is theory, it's different from when you know it's practical. So the way I see it is, you know, as much as possible, once there is the opportunity of getting word around. I mean, there was a time in Nigeria where, you know, we joked a lot about cybercrime, and there was really no conversation around the fact that, oh, maybe we should have legislation around it. But there was a time we moved on from that and began to say, okay, you know what, let's have legislation around it. And I think the conversation will move from ignorance to a place of knowledge, and people may then decide, you know what, I still want to continue with this habit, but at least they would have that knowledge that, oh, wait a second, the lies of the industry are not exactly true, and this and this and this are the facts, and then people can then decide.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we're going to be talking specific targets for tobacco control, and of course, something that bothers me in particular, secondhand smoking. What are the myths? What are the facts? Stay with us.